I want to really thank each one of you who have made it on time. And for the next couple of hours, we should have an exciting day in terms of APM 10 in its new avatar. And to take you through this, let me welcome Jason Walker, who's our VP for Solution Strategy Worldwide. Let's keep it as interactive as possible. Let's learn, let's enjoy, and have fun. Welcome once again. Jason?
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Warfield. I'm based out of Washington, D.C. in the U.S. And I've been with CA 10 and a half, almost 11 years now. I joined as part of an acquisition where we were really focused from a strategy perspective on going out and acquiring best-of-breed technology and companies in the enterprise management space. And at the time, you know, the business as a whole was focused mostly on infrastructure and applications and isolation. But over the last 10 or 11 years, as you're all well aware, the industry has evolved quite heavily. I think when I joined, I had an AT&T phone that was probably this big. It weighed about 3 or 4 pounds. And now we all have smartphones with apps and things of that nature. So as a result, CA as a company has taken a very different approach. We look at enterprise management holistically now, and it really all centers around helping you drive a great customer and user experience. So when we talk about the app economy, it really doesn't matter what industry you're in today. Almost everybody is becoming a software company. And I look at my experience traveling from the U.S. to India as a great example of that. So I left the U.S. I took, at the time, Uber, which is, essentially the local equivalent of Ola. Within 5 minutes of requesting a taxi, I had someone pick me up. While I was waiting for the taxi, I was able to check in for my flight using my mobile app. At that point in time, I got to the airport. I don't check bags. I don't have to worry about bringing a whole lot of hair products, unfortunately. So it's easy for me to really get on the plane quite quickly. So I went through security. I showed them my boarding pass on my phone. I then waited to board the plane. I took the plane through Frankfurt, landed in Mumbai, at which point in time I was able to get a car to the airport, to the hotel from the airport, again using Uber, where I'd already checked in to my room using a mobile app. So the fact that I could literally travel around the world and interact primarily via software is a pretty fascinating thing. So for us, the App Academy is very real. It's impacting and changing the way everybody does business today. And it also puts a lot of pressure, quite frankly, on how we run our operations teams and environments. So when you look at the adoption of modern development technologies like Agile, you look at the increased velocity of application releases, with some companies releasing multiple or many times a day. That's all well and good. It's great that we can get new capabilities to market very quickly, but from an operations perspective, the goal is to make sure the business runs, it's stable, it's reliable, that customers can interact with the services in a very consistent manner, and it puts a ton of pressure on the operations teams to be able to adopt these new releases into the production environment and still run an effective and reliable business. So a lot of what we focus on today from a strategy perspective is delivering solutions that can relieve a lot of the pressure from your day-to-day operations by embedding more capability, more intelligence, more visibility into the actual products and freeing you up to do things that are more strategic for your business and ultimately being more proactive so that you can deliver a higher quality of service to your customers, whether those are external customers, internal customers, or partners. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, and then I'll open it up for questions at the end. So I talked about everything being a software experience for me personally, but I think what's interesting is as I travel around the world and meet with different partners in different companies and different executives in their companies, it's amazing how industries you wouldn't think are adopting the application economy are. So one great example that stands out, we were meeting with the CIO of a pest control company. So they essentially come to your home and they'll spray and make sure that the pests in your home are controlled and contained. So it's a pretty straightforward business. It's been pretty consistent for decades. And we were talking to him about what's kind of top of mind and what keeps you up at night. And top of mind for him actually turned out to be his mobile app. And we were like, well, that's interesting. Well, what does your mobile app do? And he said, historically we'd come to your home, we'd walk around, we'd take a look, and then we'd make a bunch of recommendations, and customers would just assume or take our word for they needed us to do things for them. He said, now what we do is we come in, we have a mobile phone or a tablet, we actually will go through and take pictures, and then as we go to make recommendations to the customer, we walk them through specifically why we feel they need to buy certain services for them, and we show them via the app the pictures and the things of that nature. So I found it interesting that a business that historically used little to no technology, and now their CIO is staying up at night worrying about their mobile app. So it really is impacting every business worldwide. The reality today is users hold the power. So I'm sure everybody in this room has mobile apps on their phone. I guess the better question is, how many people in this room have more than 20 mobile apps on their phone? More than 10? So I guess I might hold the record. I have over 50 on mine. And but the reality is, when you press the button to open an app, the expectation is instantly it's available. In the past on the web, you'd had a little more tolerance. When you'd call into a call center, you would expect to wait. With a mobile app, the expectation is instant return, instant performance. So when you look at 67% of mobile users are unwilling to wait for slow app load times. During that time, what do? If it doesn't load quickly, they'll move on. They'll open up a competitor app. They'll find other ways to basically procure that service. Crashes. So crashes certainly are one of the biggest impacts to poor ratings for apps. Feedback today is instantaneous, right? I mean, one of the first things I do, whether I'm downloading an app, going to a restaurant, picking a location, is read other users, other people's feedback. And it's available worldwide, it's available in real time, everybody can see it. So when you look at the app economy, really companies' brands are now being increasingly represented by their apps. So a poorly rated app doesn't just have an impact on that one app. It has an impact on the entire brand. So it's critical that companies invest not in just making their service available via apps, but delivering high quality apps that are well rated, well received, and that continue to benefit the brand as well. And lastly, 27% of users will consider abandoning a brand over a poor app experience. That shows you how closely tied the app is to the brand. So we're not talking about, they won't buy that one service or that one good. We're talking about that customer now choosing to do business with a competitor as a result of that poor experience. So when you look at how difficult it is to acquire customers, how expensive it is to acquire customers, and how quickly you can lose that customer, it highlights the importance of delivering a great customer experience every time they interact using your app. And to that end, we have a short video that will play that highlights the expectations and why it's important to deliver a great customer experience with every interaction.
I just need to collect your name, the place you live,
Yeah, that's a little.
your social security
No,
number,
because we just met.
your net worth.
Next.
Yeah, I'm a streaming app. Music, movies,
Yeah.
whatever you want, whenever you want it.
Great.
Yeah.
Drama.
Yeah, like chick flick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you, totally.
Okay.
Actually, I can't stream anything right now.
You just said.
I know. That's a buffering issue. Just a minor bug. It's not. I just need time. You just wait around.
I'm done.
No.
Next. Perfect. I know exactly what stock I want to buy.
English or Korean?
English.
Okay, Korean. Please give me your card info. Please wait, my back-end database has crashed.
It's Kate, right? Your friend Maggie said some great things about you.
Yeah.
You like cute heels, but you're more of a wedge girl than stilettos. You love comfort, but you're not willing to sacrifice style. You're not into mules.
I hate them.
So what do you think of these?
It is like you know everything about me, but not in a creepy way.
Look, you might get called later, so how about a cashmere wrap? Matches your eyes. That's 80% off. I've got jeans, tops, dresses, earrings, whatever you want. Just relax and I'll take care of the rest.
I like the quote at the end that says, you only have seconds to make a great first impression. The one thing I'd say is, you only have seconds to make a great impression in general. So it's not just the first impression, it's every time customers interact, they expect to have a great impression. So the good news is, you as partners are in a position to really help. Sorry about that. As they're building their apps, make sure that performance is top of mind. And then from a reliability perspective, making sure that as they design the app, it's consistent and reliable. So it's not enough just to have an app that's responsive, that's quick to load, that allows users to interact very quickly, but they need to be able to actually use it and walk through it and get to the actual service they're trying to consume very quickly. So a great example, I was using an app to buy, I don't even remember what it was, because quite frankly I never got it. So I was using an app to go buy something, and I went through the process, I searched for it, got to the, added it to my cart, went through the checkout process. They already had my credit card in it. I said purchase, and then I assumed that it said confirm, your good has been purchased, and I closed the app. So I expected 2 or 3 days later that item to have showed up at my house. It didn't. So I started going through my emails and went back and looked, and there was no record of the actual purchase. So I checked my credit card, it had not been charged. So when I started going back through to figure out what happened and opened up the app and walked through the process again, turned out there was an additional screen after I said purchase the first time. It was basically a reconfirmation. Are you really sure you want to purchase this item? I didn't notice it. I did not confirm that screen, and I never ended up buying the good. So I didn't end up buying it the second time, but because to me, it was just a poorly designed app. After I took all the time to find the app, I said I wanted to buy it. At that point in time, it should have been shipped. Whereas one of their competitors that I use more heavily, I can do that whole process with one click of the button. Literally, once I find a good, it says buy now, and it's done. So I think that's an example of just having an app, just making the service available is not good enough. It's really having the workflow that customers expect so they can quickly execute the things they need to do within your app. So as a result, a lot of where we work with customers now on is delivering more value to your customers or to their customers through their app experience. And this requires a lot more in-depth understanding, not just of performance, but as usage, of behavior, of how customers individually and as a whole interact with your app. And we'll talk about how we help provide that level of visibility as I move forward. So from a CA perspective, the way we do that is through what we call Epic APM. So Epic is a theme. It's not a release, it's not a feature, it's not a capability. Epic stands for easy, proactive, interactive, and collaborative. And what we mean by that is, historically, the APM market has been focused on really getting as much data as possible and then allowing you to build views and dashboards to basically see the data. And we feel that approach is very outdated. For us, easy is all about taking the data and then transforming it into information that can be consumed by specific users and roles within the company. And I'll talk about specifically what I mean, but making it easy for APM-related information to be consumed across the organization, not just by the operations team, not just by an APM expert. Proactive, that's all about helping you run a better business. It's not good enough to wait for problems. It's not good enough to wait for a failed transaction. It's not good enough to wait for a poor customer experience. There's information available that we translate into actual information you can use to prevent those problems. Interactive, that's all about basically delivering an intuitive experience using the solution. So when we look at design, we don't design just for one person or one view that's going to be applicable to everybody. We really understand who's going to consume the information, what do they need to do their jobs, how do they want to see the information, what kind of workflows do they expect, to make it very easy for them to navigate through. And collaborative, as we looked at how do people do their jobs day to day, I don't mean how do they use our product, but we actually studied how do people do their jobs from an operations perspective, from a development perspective. One of the things we realized was, as they were either working through problems or triaging problems, a lot of time was spent and lost trying to share information. There was a lot of screen captures, emails, text messages, at times instant messages. So data was really captured and shared in a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, it was very inefficient. It was a lot of one-to-one communication. So for us, what we're doing is we're looking to drive that collaboration through software. So actually making that information available in real time, having a workflow within the product that allows you to update folks, to share information, to triage problems, and to have all that information consolidated in a single place, available in real time, available from a historical perspective, and really drive a much more effective collaboration. And the goal ultimately is to move from being descriptive, which we feel historically all the products are focused on, descriptive being here's all the data, now you need to figure out what to do with it, to being what we call prescriptive. So that now we're translating that data into information, we're using that information, or you're using that information to make better decisions, you're using that information to optimize performance of your applications, you're using that information to deliver a better user experience to your customers. So you're using that information in a way to ultimately deliver a better customer experience and run a better business. So for us, that's what prescriptive is all about. So design for us is a lot more to making things look pretty. It's not about just introducing a new user interface. We've done that, but really I'd say we've ushered in a new user experience. So Tio Baggio, who will present a little later today, will walk you through a demo. But the key to us from a design perspective is, yes, we want the user interface to look good. Yes, it needs to be built on modern technology, so you can do things like zoom in and zoom out and navigate through very quickly. But equally as important, we need to understand who's using this interface, what type of information are they looking for, how do they pivot through to get to different information in real time as they're working through problems, how do we deliver information they can use in a proactive manner. So for us, it's all about delivering different perspectives based on role, and it's all about taking the data and making it actionable for that individual, that group of individuals. And you'll see that throughout the demo. The other big thing is, from a workflow perspective, how do you minimize the time it takes to navigate through and get to the information that's important at that period of time? How do you incorporate other information that's not being collected by your products? How do you pair user experience with application performance in real time so you can see the user's entire experience throughout the value chain from mobile to mainframe? So it's being able to consolidate all that information into a single repository, making it available in real time from a viewing perspective, analyzing it in real time from a proactive perspective. And that's really what our solution's focused on from a design and information delivery perspective. So let me build this out. When we talk about personas, so for us, a persona is an individual, a group of individuals that are focused on a specific role. So when you look at Pete on the left, Pete is your typical level 1 support analyst. Pete's job, quite frankly, is all things level 1 support. So not just applications, it could be infrastructure, it could be database, it could be security. So Pete is that first line individual that is responsible for identifying a problem, taking the first pass at trying to triage and resolve a problem. And Pete does a great job at that, but the reality is Pete, or the Petes of the world I should say, they're not experts typically in any one domain, and they're certainly not experts in all the different domains. So for Pete, we need to deliver information that is very easy for him to understand, that is not going to be overly technical, and still gives him the ability to understand what the problem is. So is there a problem? How severe is that problem? Is the problem getting worse, or is it getting better? And then who do I need to identify to help work through that problem? And you'll see how we make it easy for Pete to understand that with the user experience being delivered. Ryan in the middle. Ryan is your typical APM expert. Ryan knows applications inside and out. He works with the development teams. He is able to consume that technical information and then use that to triage through problems. The challenge is Ryan gets involved in almost every issue that comes in and is unable to do things in a more strategic from a day-to-day perspective. So for us, it's all about protecting Ryan by making Pete more effective and allowing Ryan to spend less time troubleshooting problems and more time doing things strategic to the business. And Andrew, on the right, Andrew's a developer. Andrew needs to understand, look, if there's a problem in the code that I wrote, exactly where is that problem? So Andrew needs very detailed, specific information that gives him the root cause of a problem down to the line of code so that he can take immediate action to make the necessary changes and then roll that out to production. So when we talk about design and we talk about personas, as we're continually evolve and build our solution, we're looking to deliver relevant insight to each of these roles in real time through the same solution by offering different perspectives. That's what we're referring to. So I mentioned inspiring users with every interaction. So practically, how do you go about doing that? So for one, when we're looking at user experience, especially when you look at mobile, there could be thousands or millions or potentially tens of millions of users. So how do I take that information and make it meaningful? The first way you do that is, you're capturing every customer's experience in real time, but we have the ability to aggregate that. So if you've got 1.5 million concurrent users, the big question is, if I have one individual that's having a problem, it could be, their phone is really low in resources. Could be they're having a poor experience with their service provider. It could be a whole host of things. And that's important, but it's more important to understand, do you have 1,500 or 150,000 users that are having a problem? So the first thing we give you the ability to do is aggregate that information so you can understand holistically how many customers do you have interacted with your service, what percentage of those are having problems, and then from there you can use the information and understand, is it specific geographies, is it specific service providers, is it specific types of phones, Android versus iOS, is it specific versions of the operating system. So you can, from a macro level, drill down and understand what's causing the problem. And the last session, a customer asked a question, well, what if it's a service provider, a telecom provider? I don't have any control over that. That's true, you don't, but you certainly want to be aware of it. And we actually explained to him, how do you take this information and walk through to understand, okay, if it's a specific service provider, we can tell you that, because we can tell you you have thousands of customers that are having problems interacting with your service, that are using a specific type of phone, connecting over a specific service provider. So that is a level of insight we can provide. But then as you look at the individual users, the other thing you need to understand is, how are they interacting with the app? What are they doing inside the app? So from a heat map perspective, we show you, what are users doing once they open the app? What areas of the app are they most heavily utilizing? What areas of the app do they never use or hardly ever use? App flows help you understand, how do they actually navigate through your app? A lot of times with companies we work with, the way they design the app and the way users actually end up using the app are very different. Sometimes that's a good thing. A lot of times there's areas that they can actually use that information to make a lot more efficient and streamline the workflow. And then from an end-to-end monitoring perspective, it's certainly great to understand customer experience, but the reality is, as we all know in this room, there's a lot of technology behind that mobile app that must be performing to deliver a great experience. So it's critical to have an end-to-end visibility of that individual user's experience and trace that through the app, the back-end databases, the mainframe, being able to have that full visibility end-to-end to understand that the entire value chain is performing. Otherwise, you might know there's a problem, but there's no way for you to really understand what's causing it. Or even better, you could identify areas that are slowing down and fix those before they actually impact user experience. So how do you do that from a back-end perspective? Well, the way we do that is delivering real-time information. So we're looking at all the transactions as they come in. We understand how users are interacting. Is it mobile? Is it a web-based transaction? We understand the performance of the actual app. We trace it, all the back-end transactions and calls, and we give you that holistic picture. But we do it in a very different way than the competition. So historically, you basically have a big map. You'd see all the interactions, all the application communications, and that's great if you have a very small, simple environment. It's not so great if you have a large, composite, complex environment that interacts with a lot of different systems. It becomes unusable. So for us, we give you a specific perspective that allows you to narrow in on the area you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on the business process? Do you want to focus on specific transactions? Do you want to focus on specific areas that support the transaction, like the middleware? And Tia will walk you through all the different ways you can look at the information. But you basically can pivot through the information in real time so that you can narrow in on smaller areas of focus and you can get to the information you need very quickly and very effectively. Timeline views are all about allowing you to go back and replay what happened in specific periods of time. We've all been in a situation where you're trying to troubleshoot the problem. You know there was a problem, it may have gone away, it may still persist, but you're trying to figure out what happened. So timeline views are very similar to being able to go back and use a DVR to view things in a previous period of time. You can literally, within the solution, slide back to specific points in time and replay what happened. Did the application or the path and communication of that application change? And now that's caused a problem or a slowdown or a bottleneck? Was there a new release of that application released into production around that same period of time? So the actual change to the application or the update to the application may have been the cause. So Timeline View allows you to answer that question in real time within the solution. That's part of that whole collaborative approach. And then differential analysis. The reality is in today's environments, there's just too much data. Right? I mean, you look at the applications themselves, you look at millions of users, you look at all the data they collect, there's just too much data. It's not realistic to expect individuals to filter through all the data and understand what does it mean and then be able to take the appropriate responses. So we're embedding the intelligence and the analytics into the software to do that. So all the data we collect, actually all the data that we house, meaning all the data we collect or any data you also bring into our data warehouse, the analytics engine will apply to. And the whole point of the analytics engine is to identify situations to watch, meaning don't wait for problems, identify things that are slowing down, identify potential bottlenecks, identify things that may become a problem at a future point in time. That's the goal of the solutions and technology, taking that burden off of you and your operations team. You don't have to set thresholds that might be too low and you miss things, or thresholds that might be too high and too low and they're too noisy, or thresholds that are too high, you miss things. The software itself, as we're collecting data, will automatically analyze that data and proactively bring things to your attention to look at to help you run an optimal environment and not wait for things to fail or slow down or impact customers. And lastly, support for modern technologies. Microservices is a great example of enabling capabilities. So you look at Agile, you look at bringing new applications and innovations to market very quickly. Microservices certainly helps customers to do that. The challenge, as I was talking to a CIO of a dealer services company, is now any of their developers at any point in time can introduce a new microservice or make a change to a microservice. And his concern is, how do I govern that? How do I manage that? How do I know that that change or that new service is the cause or is not going to impact and cause problems in my environment? So we actually sat down and explained to him how using the same solution to manage the applications can give him that level of visibility into the microservices and the Docker containers so that you can understand the overall health of the application environment and the user experience, but also the Dockers and the containers that are being introduced into his environment as well. Mobile, I talked about a lot today. On the back end, a lot of that is powered by Node.js. So it's critical to have visibility into the Node environment in addition to all the other technologies you have supporting that user experience. And very similar for Cloud Foundry. So for applications being delivered and introduced via the Cloud Foundry platform, having visibility into that as well. So it's important to understand you can take the same solution that gives you visibility into the user experience as well as the application ecosystem and then also monitor the more modern technologies being used to build and deliver applications moving forward. So to summarize, we definitely feel our Epic approach is revolutionizing, I should say, the APM market. So the goal is to no longer wait for problems. The goal is to no longer put the burden on you and your team to figure out what to do with the data. The goal is to allow the software to take the data and translate that into actionable, proactive information you can use, and to deliver that to specific personas in ways they can consume and understand. Big part of how we do that is via patented technology. So a number of the capabilities I talked about today are patent pending. And as we're continuing to build our software, one of the challenges to our development team is think about ways that we can leapfrog the competition or introduce new capabilities into this market that didn't previously exist. That's a constant challenge. We're constantly looking to innovate. We have over 90 patents in the product today. We have 3 pending right now. And for us, it's all about continuing to be a thought leader and continuing to introduce new and innovative ways to solve difficult challenges in today's environment. Mobile and mainframe visibility, at the end of the day, you need holistic visibility end to end. So it's great to have visibility to the user experience or the application performance or the mainframe or the databases or the middleware. But in order to ensure and deliver that great experience every single time, you need to have that holistic end-to-end visibility where you can trace the user's experience all the way through the technology stack that supports that. In order to be proactive and to run a better business, we feel analytics is the practical way to do that moving forward. It's too much data, it takes too much time and too many people to even attempt to filter through it. So let the software do the analytics. We're continuing to, we actually have a data scientist team, so we're working with them on a daily basis to continue to find different and new ways to leverage data we're already collecting in innovative ways to deliver more and more actionable insight. And lastly, as your environment scales to support your customers and your growth, it's important to know that you have a solution that can scale to support the growth as well. So having an enterprise scale software solution that is reliable, that is able to keep up with the performance. Abby's going to present after me. You'll hear some examples. I live in the US. A great example to me is each iPhone launch is powered by our technology on the back end. So when you look at peak usage and the millions and millions of phones that are purchased and activated in such a short period of time, that's what we mean by performance and scale. Having products that can scale to support the largest, most demanding environments, even if they are designed for very heavy peak usage. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and open it up for a few questions. If there's no questions, thank you for your time, and I'll introduce Abby, who will walk you through. Oh, okay. So Tio Baggio will actually come up after me, which is good. So he'll actually walk you through a demo. So Tio's going to show you how we start with the user experience on the front end, give you visibility there, and then be able to trace that user experience all the way through the technology that's supporting the delivery of that service.
What our software looks like in terms of APM and mobile application analytics. Reinforce some of the messages that Jason already talked about. And I'm going to start with the end user experience. And that would come from mobile. We've been able to trace end user experience from a number of sources. Mobile is the in thing now. We have a rich solution, and I would like to show you how CA can help you in measuring the end user experience, and more importantly, in influencing their behavior using some of the analytics that are available in the mobile app analytics. So what you're seeing here is our real software SaaS platform. And we're specifically looking at a particular mobile user, what we call Tix Exchange. It's something that we developed to illustrate the purpose. And at a glance, you see the performance of this mobile Tix Exchange in the last 7 days. And you see the number of users that have been using it. They come in multiple times, which results in about 11 sessions. You see where those users come from. Right? So we do recognize their geolocations. We can take those data and map them in our SaaS platform. We also see a number of problems that are associated with these applications. So, for example, like the crashes happen multiple times throughout these 7 days. There are some thresholds that we set up, the administrators set up that kind of exceeded, and flag sessions that we are alerted. So let's take a look at deeper detail on the application usage. Here's the application usage throughout time, and we break it down further by the platforms, carriers, geolocations, as well as how each sessions fare compared to the others. So this gives operations people tremendous amount of data, right? Now they're able to see not only the users, but they have a sense whether at certain devices or certain locations or carriers might result in problematic usage of the applications. Let me drill down further into the specific sessions, individual user sessions. So we have a number of those. And you're going to love this. You're going to love our capabilities. Here, you can see at the top how long these user sessions been going on, where it originates, what kind of device. Even tells you whether the iPhone is jailbroken or not, as well as the connectivity that the end user has. We also give you an ability to give a feedback to the users, to give feedback to you. So a way for your users to connect with you. They can send a message, they can leave a feedback, and this feedback is not the same as the feedback that you see in the application's review. This is only for you. This is what your users trying to help you by indicating the problem or anything that he has experienced. So this is something for the operations. But more importantly, you will be able to see every detail of his activities. Right? You can see those screens, and these events are basically this every gestures that the users make, calls that the applications perform for the backend, API calls. Right? It could be also when the screen transitions from one to another. So all of these details we capture in these mobile app applications. As well as for each of the events, the usage of consumption, the resources that applications demand from the devices. You can drill down on these events and tells you a lot more detail on that. So you can tell, for example, is this, if they tilt it from portrait to horizontal or vice versa, will that display properly? And the coolest thing is that you can do a playback. You can do a session playback to see how the users use these applications from the start all the way to the finish. And notice those green dots that are flashing on the screen. That's his finger, right? That's what he touches on the screen. That's how he interacts with your mobile applications. That's what he presses. Right? We don't record his keyboard or if he enter in password. We don't record any of this. This solution does not tamper with or add or subtract any security requirements that the application imposes or that require that on the device. It works with it. And there are certain also, if a privacy is a concern which some of your customers may have, you can use this feature called use as reference. What that means is when capturing, we give you capabilities to catalog all of the screens during the development. Right? And when you launch it, what the users give you is just the reference to that screen. So it's not real data, but at least it gives you an idea, what he performs, what he sees, where he is at during his customer journey. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to ask me. We want to make it as interactive. Furthermore, we see all the transactions that these users perform. Let me go to you in other sessions that are probably richer. Okay, so here we see more transactions. Similar thing as what we see before. Again, all the events that we capture, along with the screenshots of each of the events or the events transition. And you can see also the red here indicates a crash in the applications, and that users already lack of feedback in this case. Not only that, this tool is useful for business people as well as developers. Here, during the crash, we collect that information. So for you who are more technically inclined, you probably want to see the line of code or where the crashes actually happen. Right? And we do collect this information to aid in the debugging. So in essence, this solution gives you ability to be like a mind reader. Do you have a question? Yeah.
So, and an example of Apple was given, right, where millions of users will be hitting the website. So it becomes really impossible for somebody to go into each session, and there will be,
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of sessions where there have been problems,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
And these problems could have been because of the end device or network issues or some issue with the device itself.
Yeah.
So what we heard in the last session was that there is a lot of new patents that you have filed, and there is a lot of intelligence that have been built into the platform,
Yes.
which helps us in doing exception-based monitoring, right? That would essentially mean that if a large chunk or a large percentage of the users have abandoned the application at a particular stage, or this exception has come for a large number of statistically significant large number of users,
Yeah.
then that is of potential interest for the developer and the support teams
Yeah.
to look into and resolve, rather than every individual session, because it is impossible for a support team to look at each thing happening when the number of users is in millions.
Okay, I understand. So his comment is, this session is great. It captures a lot of things, but you cannot possibly make people to visit every session. There's got to be a way to to aggregate this data, right, and give you some kind of analysis throughout all these sessions. So we do that. Number of things. Let me show you. So you talk about crashes. We do summarize all the crashes. We tell you how many crashes happen over a period of time. The platforms, the devices where the crashes happen most. the software versions and so on, right? The carrier, and the type of crashes that happen. That's one thing. So this is summarizing all these crashes that happen. Another thing is we look at all the sessions and we gather some of the statistics and tell you the overall user behavior. So if I have, I deploy the mobile applications to hundreds of thousands, even millions, what is their interaction like? Which screen that gives the most problem in terms of delay, or how long does it take to load a particular screen or transition to another? Same thing in terms of usage. You'll be able to know which ones actually use a lot. How many times or how many clicks does it take from the minute he logs in until he chooses the product that he wants? Right? Does most of the users drop off? What's the rate of the purchase? What's the conversion rate? So this is the kind of analysis that the mobile application analytics we're able to give you by analyzing all this data, and at the same time we're able to give details session and knowing what the individual user does. Yeah. Yes. Good question. So, what about the backends? That's what basically you're saying. What we've been showing, we started with the users. We understand the user activities within his own device, which is very personal, and great that we have that visibility. But how's the transactions? How's that the user transactions processed by the backends? So here, going to a session again. So there's a linkage between mobile app analytics and APM. Right? If you see a user transaction that are slow, you can click this APM button, and it gives you a launch in context directly to the APM 10. Has this been the backend application monitored by our APM solutions? So here, what you're seeing is a whole map, whole relationship from the end users, starting with the end users transactions. There are a number of them, right? And the applications component that support those transactions, as well as the backend that are connected to these applications. So we map out the whole thing, and we do this automatically. It's not a manual thing, it's an automatic thing. We figure out the relationship from the end user transactions all the way to the backend, mobile to mainframe, as you mentioned. Yeah.
So far, we have seen that this whole analytics or analysis is based on the crash reports that we basically collect from the end devices. It could be mobile or web, right?
Sorry, the whole analytics.
So far, yes. So far, what I understood basically is the analysis is based on the crash reports, or does it also take into the account about the application performance, the code executions, system resource performance, and all that?
Yeah.
Does it?
It does.
Okay.
So there are two things, right? In the mobile, we do, as you can see, we do give you information about resources, about the usage, CPU, disk, memory on that device itself. So that has to do with the end user piece of it. Now, on the APM side, the backends, when those transactions are processed by the backend somewhere, we do give you information about the resources as well, and the performance, which I'm going to get into. in a few minutes.
Which means the application specific resources and its behavior.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So at the end, user, whatever he's doing from his mobile device, basically that could be the different devices, different configurations, and different application platforms, right? But at the end, they are hitting your applications, your database, your web servers, your APIs, your application codes, and all that. So,
Yes.
does the solution do the analytics on the servers and the components, which is basically ultimately getting accessed by the users? It
Yes.
should. That's the basic thing,
Yes.
requirement, right?
Yes.
And it's not based on the crash or based on the incidents. It's supposed to be based on the baselining the application performance,
Exactly.
right?
I agree with you. And I'm going to describe all of those, all the points that you mentioned. Basically, what you're saying is you need to be able to kind of correlate the end user experience with what's happening in the backend.
Right, right.
Because that's what's important. Your backend is what the IT has access to or has control over, and they're constantly watching for that. They want to know and they want to see how that relates to this.
Okay,
Right.
thanks.
Yes.
Is the differentiation between what is happening on the device
Mhm.
and so that the mobile developer teams can look at that,
Yes.
right, versus the backend teams, wherein
Exactly.
we know that this particular problem may have occurred, may have been faced on the mobile device, but it is happening because of the middle tier or because of the database
Exactly.
tier,
Yeah.
right? So, and we need to know whether it is an infrastructure problem which can be resolved by the infrastructure teams, or does this need to go into a code level where someone needs to change the way the code has been written for a microservice or a servlet or Node.js application or even a database call.
Yeah.
So in the end, it boils down to the ability of the system to do comprehensive root cause analysis
Yes.
across all the layers and give me, you mentioned about prescriptive, right?
Yes.
So rather than data and information, what we need is a prescription that team A needs to go and look at the mobile app and resolve this,
Yeah.
or team B who's written the servlet or the Node.js application needs to look at the code,
Yeah.
or team C needs to look at the database, or the infrastructure guys need to look at how their infrastructure is performing and ramp up or scale up their infrastructure on the cloud or private cloud or wherever it is hosted.
Exactly.
So if that level of root cause analysis is given, that's what is essentially needed from a support perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, there are other aspects of APM wherein we want to know how the users are behaving. So there is the consumer behavior analysis of the actual usability of the application. That is another piece, right?
So your point is actually a variation in theme is what that gentleman said. And as you rightly mentioned, we monitor the end users, the devices, but you need backends as well. There's a reason why MAA, this point, we offer it as a separate solution. That it takes care of, because the mobile experience is a very rich experience. It has its own device, unlike a browser where we pretty much know how to do that for a long time. But the device offer us a very rich set of data points. But we do need to marry them, and eventually it's it doesn't matter where the users come from, right? Whether it's from laptop, a browser, or when he has a problem with that, he would probably use his mobile device to access the same thing.
Yeah, my point was that though you can launch in context the APM tool, but the real value would come in when the application is looked at from starting from the mobile app all the way down to
Yeah.
the mainframe, right?
Yes.
So the mobile application is using someone else's device, or the CPU or RAM in someone else's device, just like a browser uses the memory and compute capacity of a laptop or a desktop. So it doesn't really matter from the app perspective, but from a tooling perspective, you may have had a legacy, and every APM provider has a legacy, right? The mobile came later than the desktops and the laptops.
Yeah.
So I do agree that you need specialized stuff for mobile, but to really resolve issues which may originate on the backend, we need analytics at least to run on both the data points. So if you have some views where you can show us exceptions which are
fact,
across the board, that would be
so
really
this is-
helpful.
I'm gonna kind of like segue. That's a good time to segue to the APM piece of it. So here's what the APM 10 looks like. For those of you who are who's an old customer who have seen the previous version, you'll notice the clean UI. This very modern UI. We use AngularJS for what we call Team Center. As I mentioned, the Team Center here, you will be able to see the end user, the transactions, whether they come from the mobile or browsers. We don't really care. We detect all of them, and we know the relationship or what supports those end user transactions on all the backends that are related to it. As Jason mentioned, one of the key things in APM 10 is to make it easy. There are a number of users in the past that rely on APM, primarily developers, those who are tasked with fixing things, and the application experts. Right? But throughout our research, we have level 1 analysts, what we call Pete, who want to use APM, and he's not an expert. He doesn't go to a computer science school. He doesn't know a lot about applications, but he needs to do his job well. And what his job is basically understand if somebody calls, if somebody having a problem, that he knows the context, he understands that, and be able to give that issue, that problem to the experts, the appropriate person. So he can use this and use what we call, this is a marquee feature of APM 10, what we call perspective. So he can look at this map, this relationship from a number of ways, basically. One of that is by location. So he can see that, well, I can see that there are several locations having a problem, and I can drill down to that specific locations and find out the software that are housed in there. Sorry. The one that are housed in there, or I can go by, say, owner. This way he knows who to contact, who's responsible for these applications, whether that's the e-commerce team, whether the security team, or the database people. He can also build his own perspective and filter any of these components according to his criteria. So now he wants to see only business transactions that are problematic, for example. Show you everything, and the view will be built dynamically, and going back to these only place order. There you go. So all of these capabilities, being able to apply different perspective, is made possible by making use of what we call attributes. So we collect attributes. By default, we collect agent names, their applications, where they reside, which host they are on. And also, you can define your own custom attributes, things such as release version. So that way, you can keep track of the different releases and see how that release not only know where, when the release happened, but how that relates to the application's performance, which I'm going to show you later. Also, another thing to make it easy for Pete, for this level 1 analyst, is instead of dealing with the typical alerts, red, yellow, alerts, green, where in this scenario, it's hard for him to not only keep track of what happened, but in order to make sense of what happened and how severe the problem is. Yes, it's red, but how long that issue has been going on. How many threats are there in terms of the number of alerts that are associated with the software components. So in APM 10, we summarize those alerts that we have and we present that with what we call alert intensity. So here's the alert intensity, 2 out of 10, for example, that number. 2 threats out of 10, and then the arrow, there's a down arrow and up arrow, which indicates whether the problem is decreasing or increasing. Where's the trend right now? If it's decreasing, I may have some time to let it happen, settle, or if it's increasing, I will need to eyeball it, pay attention to it more. There's also another thing called what we call differential analysis. So that's usually indicated by the blue bar on this side. You don't see it right now, but hopefully it'll come up later. But this is what it looks like, the blue bar. So here again, it makes it easy for level 1 analysts by just looking at that. The different shades of gray. He could concentrate. Those are basically represent the response time of business transactions. Okay. So he can concentrate on the dark area, which basically indicates problematic or unstable applications. So the way the level 1 support will use these two, the differential analysis and the alert intensity, is one is automatic. Differential analysis, you don't have to do anything. It will learn by itself. You don't need to set thresholds, and will give you the application's performance. We do the baselining, and we tell you how much of this current performance compared to the previous pattern that we have seen. It learns by itself, and where the alert intensity is actually your SLA. It's fixed. You have a certain SLA. It's fixed, and it's something that you need to set at the beginning. So this is
which this tool captures for the analysis and for the analytics engine. What is the granularity of that data capturing? Okay, and does APM admin will have flexibility to increase or decrease the data capturing granularity, considering if you want to investigate on a specific platform or on certain trends?
Yeah.
So this is the one thing. And another question is, like, we are talking in APM 10 for end user experience on application.
Yes.
And if I see for a end user experience for an application, network is also a key point. So we have talked about database, servers, and OS and end users equipment. So if there is something which is wrong on the network connectivity, will this tool is going to give any hint, any indication on that part? Or we have to take help of NPM tools?
I'll answer the later question first. Will this give you a network health? Okay. Will I be able to tell whether the network is good and how much that contributes to the applications or the end user's performance? The answer is yes. We have solutions for that. I don't have the demo for that, but we do have solutions that will measure and correlate the network, the infrastructure performance, the health of that with the end users, with the applications. So you'll know, for example, like there's a lot of retransmission in the network. It's a dirty network. Then we'll be able to associate that with certain user behavior or user transactions behavior. The first question is how often or how granular we collect data. So there are two things. when things are normal, we collect that every 15 seconds. So the agent will give lots of data, every 15 seconds to the server. When things is abnormal, meaning then you can collect more detailed evidence. Right? That's real time. So that's everything. You don't have to wait 15 seconds. You'll be able to see more data, more detailed, evidence, real time, all of it.
And what about the storage of data? Because there should be a limitation where whether it will get overridden, or if it is getting overridden, then it is automatic, or whether system admin can control it. Because at time, if there is huge influx of data, and if the storage capacity is less, so either it will be overridden or it will not capture the data. So how this is being managed?
How's the data being managed? So we have a self-managed database at the back end, what we call Smart Store, with the APM. The minute our agent picks up data, it will persist in Smart Store. Okay, so you don't have to do any management with this database. You'll be rest assured that we capture all of those data points. You don't need to do backup. You don't need to do daily maintenance or anything to do with database. It's self-managed. All you need to do is that you specify how long you want the storage to hold data for. So you can say like 1 year, 6 months, right? And there's the different tiers of the database, different granularity, and we'll do that, all the management ourselves for you. Okay? Oh, okay. Sorry, say again.
Mechanism of geographical location tracing.
Oh, mechanism of a geographical location. You can determine that for a number of things. For mobile users, obviously, you have the GPS on that mobile, and it gives you locations. You can also do it by IP. So when we get the end user request, we know where that originates, and you can do a lookup and know where that user's from.
Because what I have observed is that when I was using MA, the geographical location was coming something different. It was coming in say CP, whereas I was hitting in lookup.
Okay.
I faced this.
It probably has to do with recapturing the IP. Sometimes the IP database is not updated. Could be, that's one reason. I do see that from time to time, but it's very, very minor number of users, and it's just like when you use Google Map. Sometimes it's a little bit out of the whack. It doesn't know exactly where you are, but we use the same mechanism. Okay. All right. So I've
one question. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you again.
Okay.
How does it answer scalability challenges for business? For example, today I may have a 5,000 user database.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I have installed application on 5,000 mobile devices.
Yes.
Business is expanding day by day, right? We are adding more users, we are adding more inventory into it. So how does it help business as well as developers to forecast the scalability for their applications?
Yeah. The answer is we design it from the beginning to be scalable. Right. The number of, in terms of mobile devices, by the way, on the mobile applications analytics, we use Cassandra as a backend. It is high performance database. It scales very well. And on the APM side, as I mentioned, you have Smart Store. We have been having this database, been using it for over 10 years now, and I think we are the most scalable in the market. Just to give you a point, one server instance of APM with regular, say, 14 gig of memory can hold 100 JVMs, lots of transactions.
I do understand from the APM point of view, when we plan it, we decide the scalability criteria.
Yeah.
My solution should be scalable for what instance, data, or applications. My question on specific to the application which is being monitored by the application monitoring tool, which is APM 10 in our case.
Yeah.
So how does it help business and technical to identify or maybe proactively identify what scalability challenges they have to answer for their tool which is being monitored by the APM tool?
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Sounds like you're actually asking about overhead, is it? On the
Yeah, I
application.
would say like fine, I have a solution, mobile application solution, right? So let's say as of now today, I have 5,000 users connected to my core system, but I expect a significant growth in next 1 month.
Yep.
And I need to scale up, or I may have to scale up for 30,000 users. I may have to add maybe a 1 million inventory, maybe. So how does it help business to identify those scalability additions to their applications? Does it help, or it's again analysis which we have to take manually and all that?
Yeah. So it does help in when you have or when you deploy APM solutions, the agent has a very small footprint and very low overhead. We can configure it to be, say, between 3 to 5%. And as your application scales to cater for more users, you would hardly see more, performance required or more overhead required by the agent. We've been, like I said, we've been in the business for a long time, and I'm pretty convinced that this is one of the most scalable solutions in the market. In terms of scalability, I think we're number one, I would say. Yeah.
So if we talk about time taking between the application components, where we can see the time between the application components from web server to application server, and from application server to database, and vice versa.
How do you measure the time between
Yeah,
these components?
yeah, right.
Several things. You can, for example, your applications issue a call, a API or database calls. It's not shown here, but if I drill down into it, you will see how long it takes to call other components. What's the performance like? We have that.
Separate dashboard?
No, it's not a separate dashboard. It's just a link because, for example, I can go. Here's what we call web view, which is basically a drill down. Then you can see, for example, here. This is more for experts, right? They want to drill down. So, for example, like web services, just give you response time of web services, how long it takes to call from the client side, producer side of web services, how much time it takes to process that request, SQL, and so on. Okay, just a different, drill down view from the Teamcenter. All right. Lots of good questions, and I need to wrap it up. So I've introduced differential analysis, the Teamcenter, which makes easy for level 1 support by reorganizing data according to this perspective. And the last thing is this timeline. Basically, the timeline is able to give you the performance, not only the performance of the applications, but the first thing that customers ask, your client would ask if things go wrong is, what has changed, right? What did somebody do? Did anybody do anything last night or in a first last hour that would result in problems? So with using timeline, you're able to look at the historical data and you see the change in status change in topology, meaning that the flow of the user transactions differ from previously, as well as change in attributes. So to give you a little bit more example there, here is a change in topology. I click on that, it will tell me the components. That could be additions or subtractions of that components, could be new components of the same thing deployed, and how that results in changes in the status, in the amount of alerts that you get. Okay, and then you can go back in time to see, compare what has been, what was previously there, and what does the new things look like. So basically, timeline differential analysis and the team-centered perspective is the marquee features of APM10. This is what enables people level 1 support to be more effective. They don't have to bother the experts anymore. With that, I'm going to end my demo, and I'm going to take one more question before I give it to Avi.
When we talk about CA APM10,
yes.
What are the 2-3 biggest differentiators compared to the other vendors in the market? The biggest 2-3 differentiators.
Those things that I just mentioned. Perspective.
I'm talking when we talk business. Suppose a customer is using another APM tool or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm going to translate that to a little bit more high level. Why perspective is important is because if you have a customer that's, a large customer especially, and they have this type, a lot of APM tools have this type of solution, right? They can tell you the relationship. But the problem is, once you discover more and more, there's no way you can slice and dice that data. There's no way you can filter that. You're just going to add things into the relationship view or the application map that you have, which makes it hard for people to take actions. There's no way to filter that. So you can look it up, all those APM in the market. They don't have that capability. The ability to detect timeline such as this and relate that with the changes in status topology as well as attributes is something that's very, very unique to our solution. So what that means is, when certain releases happen and how that affects your topology, your mapping, right? And again, how that reflects in application performance. So this is something unique that we have. Differential analysis as well, ability to do not only baselining, but add seasonality into that. So we know last Friday we'll compare that to Friday now, and next week Friday. So seasonality, baselining, a smart algorithm, which all of those automatically done, applied for business transactions. That's also unique. Okay. I guess with that, I'm going to end my presentation. I'm going to give it to Abhilash. Thank you.
And we'll spend some time with you later for some questions. And I know you had a question that probably did not get answered properly, so we probably need some time with you. And I know that a couple of others had a couple of questions. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Abhilash. I run the enterprise management business for CA for India and SAARC. Enterprise management is a business unit within CA that comprises of both infrastructure management as well as application performance management products. This business unit basically deals with, my guys deal with both pre-sales and sales functions for products and technologies that CA is in the market for, which is the management set of products. What I wanted to do is, we spent some time on APM10. Why are we doing it? We spent some time on actually seeing the product. I wanted to give a larger context for, especially from a partner's perspective, a conversation context with customers in terms of what is happening and how do you link the concept of APM or the concept of having an APM
with a reality within the market that is happening, specifically around digital disruptions, around digital economy, and what is happening and how alignment between a solution that you want to sell or position with respect to a market reality can happen. That's important when we have a conversation. So I'm just going to give that outline. I'm also going to cover a little bit on why are we doing this, right? We are the market leaders in APM. We did a lot of work in APM for the past 15 years, but why are we changing our direction with respect to APM with the kind of stuff that we talked about and that is coming in the roadmap, right? Why are we changing our direction with respect to a standard monitoring approach of transactions and application monitoring and metrics and all that, which is common to any APM or any monitoring solution. So we'll talk about that. Let me just give you a context. What happens online in 60 seconds? And I'm sure most of you have seen this slide. Some of you have seen it in Facebook or SlideShare or anywhere. What is interesting about here is what happens online in terms of data points across years, 2012, 13, 14. You don't have the slide for 15, but the 15 one is going to be materially higher. You look at some of the companies like Google, almost doubled, right? Look at Instagram and look at WhatsApp and look at YouTube. Interesting to look at email, hasn't changed much, right? So you look at where the growth is and what is happening in online. Now, what this says is something interesting is happening, right? What is happening? What is happening is that the traditional business models are getting challenged across every vertical that we deal in. Traditional business models that used to have clear association with inventory or clear association with brick and mortar beings has been challenged. Look at this example, right? The largest content provider doesn't have any content. The largest taxi provider in the world today, Uber, doesn't own any taxis. The largest hotel chain in the world do not have any rooms. The largest retail chain in the world do not own any inventory, right? We could have never thought of this scenario maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago when Hyatt or somebody, one of those large hotel chains would plan for their future strategy, it would be about acquiring new hotels. It would be about acquiring new rooms, right? But today that whole concept has been challenged. What has changed? What has changed is software defines how business models need to be built. We call it in CA, 2 years ago we launched this, we call it business rewritten by software, right? We realized this, that every business in this planet is going to be rewritten by software. Whether it is manufacturing, whether it is retail, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is government, whether it is BFSI, whether it is aviation, whether it is even automobile, all of them are going to be in one way or the other rewritten by software. Now, if business is getting rewritten by software, what does business need? Business need ability to control that software, to get visibility into that software, to make sure that that software delivers an experience that customers want to deal with that software, right? Because if business is rewritten by software, customers and users like you and me are not dealing with businesses anymore. We are dealing with software, right? In that world, experience is everything, right? In life or in industry or in business or in our professional life, everything is driven by experience, right? We like something, we go with it. We don't like something, we don't go with it. So the whole notion of experience has become so much more important because now that experience is not controlled by human beings over the counter. Now that experience is not controlled by phone calls. Now that experience is controlled by how a click responds in a mobile phone or how a page responds in an internet, right? Now experience also for brands builds what I call loyalty, right? If I use Grofers for my grocery shopping, right, I use Grofers irrespective of what Peppertap tries to do because I have a good experience with them and I continue using them. But the day I have a bad experience, the day I click on something and I wanted some grocery and it did not come for 15 hours and I have a bad experience with the whole delivery thing, I'll move on. And once I move on, irrespective of how much money you spend in marketing, in reaching to me as a person, I will not go back. Give you another example. I don't know how many of you are aware, Union Bank of India, one of the PSU banks in this country. If you are traveling to Bangalore or Mumbai or even in Delhi airports, you'll see big hoardings of Union Bank of India as an advertisement. We were sitting with some of the leadership team in Union Bank of India, and they were talking about spending millions of dollars in marketing what I call mobile strategy of Union Bank of India. Now, mobile strategy of Union Bank of India, according to chairman and board of directors, is to drive the people or the customers to use their mobile application. They spend millions of dollars in that with marketing campaigns. Now, that same person says that I love the fact that I have a marketing campaign that is driving a lot of people to mobile, and then he opens up his mobile and says, but if the customer is going to click my login button and the mobile app crashes, all that money just went down the way. Right? That all that money that you spend in marketing to drive that particular user to use mobile phone just went off because he had a bad experience. Right? So if brands are earlier used to drive marketing to attract people, now has to also live up to the experience through the software that they offer. Now that is where traditional business models are challenged, and that is where the relevance of these kind of business driven software happens. The digital disruptors, or the people that we talked about, the Ubers of the world, the Airbnbs of the world, they are winning market share and growing because what I call disintermediation is happening. Now disintermediation is a very hugely discussed word in today's economy. Disintermediation is prevalent across industries, across verticals. Right? Disintermediation means the business is cutting out all intermediaries and going directly to the consumer or the user. There is no concept of a middleman. You look at what the government wants to do through Digital India, you look at what a bank wants to do, payment banks, you look at what a manufacturing industry wants to do, you look at what retail wants to do, you look at what e-commerce wants to do, they all want to do disintermediation. Why? Because if the moment I reach to my consumer directly through a mobile device or through any other channel of business, then I am cutting off a lot of flab in my supply chain management. That is what every customer wants to do. So digital strategy, as we discussed it, for a lot of businesses is to cut out, to achieve disintermediation. Now if that is what is prevalent and if that is what every business wants, what do customers want? Customers like you and me, what do us want? We want fast, reliable and secure transactions. Very simple three things. We want fast, reliable and secure transactions. That's it. If you give me a software that enables me to do business with you in a fast, reliable and secure manner, you've got your foundations right. Then you can build everything else on top of it. Right? Now, if you look at it that way, who is the real disruptor? It is not big data, it is not the cloud, it is not social media, it is not analytics. The actual disruptors are the customers or the users. What is disrupting business? You and me are disrupting business. Right? The customers who are using these solutions, where the economics of the business happen, that is what is disrupting, not the technology that is driving it. The technology just becomes an enabler for that disruption. A lot of people talk about digital disruption being pervasive through technology. No, digital disruption is because of user behavior. The users would now not go out of their home but order their groceries or their food through a Swiggy or a Grofar. Now that is a behavior by the user or the customer. So that is the disruption, not the technology. Technology enables you to do that disruption. Now if this is clear and if this is understood, then whom do you need to convince? Whom do you need to manage? Whose experience do you need to control? User, not the technology, not the data center, not the application. It's your user experience, it's your user behavior, it's your user analytics that you need to have a visibility on, that you need to control. Right? We have understood this like 2 years ago. Right? And we took a step back in our whole development process of all of our products, not only APM, across the entire management suite. We took a step back and said, this world is changing. Right? Software is becoming everywhere. Software is going to drive the business. Users are going to be the king. So we cannot no longer manage technology and get ourselves embezzled into this whole world of multiple metrics, collect that, collect this, and provide all metrics in a dashboard. That world is over because nobody cares. Right? If you try to sell to an organization which is a large enterprise or a medium enterprise, they are not bothered about what metrics do you collect. That just becomes a tick in the box. What they are bothered about is how are you able to control, measure and manage experience of users that use those businesses. Now we did this survey 2 years ago with Freeform Dynamics, one of our large analyst firms that we are engaged with, to understand what exactly do these unicorns do right. Why are these guys successful? Right? We took a step back and we said 1,125 large unicorns, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Flipkarts, the Snapdeals of the world. We said, what are they doing right? We found three things, three clear things. First, all of them, 100% of them use agile practices for development. They don't have a waterfall model. They have a dynamically developing fast agile scrum process based system for their application software. None of them use a waterfall model of getting the idea, then designing it and then implementing it and then testing it and then going into production. That model does not exist for these providers. So they are able to bring products to market faster. Number two, all of them use what we call DevOps, right? All of them use development and operations interchangeably. Operations are part of development, development is part of operations. There is no concept of throwing shit over the wall. Development doesn't make code and throw it over to operations for them to run it. There is no concept of I make 6 months to build, you take 6 months to run. That wall doesn't exist. Development is part of operations. Operations is part of development. There is a constant, continuous 360-degree data exchange between development organizations and operations functions. That gives that gives the whole organization a much faster go-to-market. Right? So that's number two. Number three, 80-90% of these organizations have implemented what we call API-based strategy to integrate with external systems. Their go-to-market is clearly dependent upon how the software works with multiple third-party other softwares and leverage data across. These are three critical things that we found are relevant and prevalent in all these digital disruptors. Now, since we have found this data like 2 years ago, we need to now incorporate this into what we are doing every day in our products. Right? And it is important because otherwise we will become irrelevant. Right? So what are we doing? Right? Let's just play this video to understand what did we do differently once we found this out. Right? Start the video, please. Oops. Thank you.
Applications are everywhere today. Users are constantly connected through their phones, web browsers, and increasingly via wearables like the Apple Watch. And apps are becoming the primary way consumers interact with companies through all kinds of services. But those services aren't actually in the apps. They're running in places like the cloud or data centers around the world. And most applications deliver value using APIs. APIs are the lines of communication that transport data between applications. A good example of this is the way that Yelp integrates with Google Maps to show users where to find recommended restaurants. Apps rely on APIs to deliver these kinds of services to users. To stay competitive, you need to bring great apps to market quickly, securely, and efficiently. That's where CA Technologies comes in. We are the only software provider who can help accelerate you through every stage of the application lifecycle. From the beginnings of an idea all the way through to development, deployment, and ensuring your apps deliver the most value by constantly measuring ROI. Organizations that are ready to rapidly build and deliver new applications can take advantage of new opportunities. Unlike waterfall development, which is strictly sequential, Agile gives developers the freedom and flexibility to respond to changing customer needs. CA's Agile management solutions, including the market-leading software from our Rally acquisition, give you the tools and coaching you need to accelerate innovation, so you can align and enable your organization to deliver high-quality apps quickly and continuously measure their effectiveness and value. Our DevOps solutions also help our customers' applications get to market faster by enabling continuous delivery, so you know exactly how those apps are doing in the real world. Once your apps are in the marketplace, they're supported with capabilities that help you scale for growth, resolve issues quickly, and make constant improvements to your apps using real-world data from your users. CA's API solutions help you build security into your apps right from the start. When you can apply intelligent security, you do more than keep data and privacy safe. You actually improve the user experience, so customers aren't constantly being asked for things like one-time passwords or answers to secret questions. Today, it's more important than ever for companies to manage APIs so they can quickly create new apps, deliver valuable features, and resolve issues rapidly while keeping every transaction secure. CA Technologies has comprehensive solutions and services to meet your needs at each step of that journey, so you're ready to rise to the challenge and succeed in the application economy.
So that's just a high-level overview of what we're doing, right? The agile management piece, the DevOps piece, and the API had to link with what we found out in that survey. CA has been in business for more than 35 years now. We were founded in 1976. We've kind of moved through multiple shifts. We are a mainframe company when we started. In 1976, our founders found the company as a mainframe management solution. Then came the gradual shift from mainframe to distributed, where we had to take a step back and decide what we need to do. And then we did that. Now, this is the journey from distributed to digital. Again, we had to take a step back and decide what we want to do to be successful in this market, what will make our solutions relevant to the digital disruptors that we discussed. We invest more than $1 billion a year, $1 billion out of a $4 billion company to support as well as design new software, innovative solutions, because that's the only way to survive in this market. Right? Otherwise, you will become irrelevant pretty soon. So let's come back to what we talked about the users, right? It is also interesting to note that these users are ready to expose the flaws that you have in this economy. Right? If you deliver good, they are ready to appreciate you. But if you don't deliver good, they are ready to expose your flaws. I don't know how many of you are aware about this company called E-Trade. E-Trade is one of the largest online security trader in the US. They deal with online trading. And there came a point where E-Trade had to capture some market share from one of their competitors, and they had to launch some innovative schemes in the market to capture market share. And one of the things that they did is they launched a program for their customers where if you buy or sell shares at a particular time of the market and your value of the share is, say, $9.20, they guarantee that purchase at that value. And if that purchase did not go through because of an application issue, transaction issue, they will give the money back to the users as to how much they were supposed to earn. It's an interesting way to capture market share because they signed an SLA with the user. Many companies do not do that. You don't sign SLAs with your end users, right? Because you never know what the end users do. But if they wanted to capture market share, they did that. What happened? The thing went down, right? For 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever time. They had to pay millions of dollars in payment charges to their users, right? A lot of you would be aware of, would know that WhatsApp went down, right? Recently, for 8 hours or whatever time it went down. Very few people know what happened in those 8 hours, right? As an instant messaging system called Telegram, they got 3 million users in 8 hours, the biggest ever in the history of digital transformation. In 8 hours, they had 3 million new users. WhatsApp went down for 8 hours. Imagine what happened if it would have gone for 80 hours. A lot of you know about Obamacare. Obamacare is again another application that the federal government under President Obama launched for the healthcare system. Again, disintermediation. They wanted to cut out all the middle level agencies and wanted the healthcare to reach citizens directly. Application almost got down the government. Right? It created so much furor there. The administration almost were on the brink of getting into a point of no return. It is just a software application. Right? Users who have been there exploited this. Right? They use social media, they use other channels to drive this behavior of saying WhatsApp is down, let's go to Telegram, or I'm leaving it because it just doesn't work. Right? It happens, and we see this every day in our Facebooks, in our Twitter, we see this every day, this behavior. Right? That landscape of that market is growing at a rate of knots. And there's been multiple studies on this, but what interests me on this is the number of mobile applications downloaded by 2017. 268 billion. In a planet that has got 7 billion human beings, that is 30 to 35 apps per human being. Right? Think about it, right? Every human being having 35 apps, doing multiple services, multiple transactions across, it's just a different world, right? When that reality hits. We've been in this market for a long time, and as Jason and Tia explained, CAPM was built for application performance monitoring 15 years ago when the concept didn't exist. Nobody knew what was application performance management. We invented this space, right? Close to 1,000 plus customers, close to 90 plus patents, right? We have customers, we are running at such massive scale that is just not present in any other technology across the globe. Like for example, we have a telco that captures 144 billion metrics a day in one day. And that's what Jason said, the Apple iPhone launch day. Right? 144 billion. We have an online tax company that runs 2.5 million concurrent customer sessions at a point in time. We have a leading technology vendor who has deployed 25,000 agents in their infrastructure. So from a scale perspective, from an ability to execute perspective, they're already there. But why are we innovating? Why are we taking a step back? And if we are here and we can continue this on, we'll probably continue this on for another 2 years. And then we'll just become extinct. Why? Because what I just said, right? This disruption will have to be beyond what we can do and collect as a metrics. It has to be about the user. The other thing that we have established in this market is our exclusive partnership with SAP. I don't know how many of you know. We are the only vendor to have an exclusive partnership with SAP for 15 years. What does that mean? That means that SAP uses our solution to troubleshoot their product using their Active Global Service, AGS, Active Global Support. So if you log a call with SAP with a problem within NetWeaver or any other SAP system, they use our technology to troubleshoot what problems they have. They also resell this product. CA doesn't sell it, SAP sells it as SAP Extended Diagnostics. Recently they launched HANA, which is an in-memory platform from a database perspective, and that also today is under the monitoring ambit of SAP Extended Diagnostics. So this is another proof of the fact that we've established partnerships and we've established solutions that helps across verticals. But that was the story of yesterday, right? The story of yesterday was about applications in a box, especially in the early 90s, applications were in a box. You need to manage that box, and you need to manage that application, and you're good. Then it is all about metrics. You need a lot of metrics. Then, like I said, we invented this whole world of transactions. We had SOA, there were middleware, there was WebSphere, and there were a lot of asynchronous transactions that happened in the world where people wanted to understand transactions. And again, we were a leader in that space by linking asynchronous calls into transactions. Everybody wanted to know transactions. People would talk about business transactions. People would talk about end user transactions. That was the world that we lived in. That was the world that we led in. But today's world and the future is not about transactions. As recently as 2 weeks ago, we were having a conversation with one of the largest banks in the country, and the CIO very plainly said, I'm not interested in transactions. I don't need to know. I have 1 million transactions a day. I don't want to look at it. I don't want analytics around it. I want to know about users. I want to know user behavior. I want to know what users are doing. Right? And then I want to know user experience, and then I will go to transactions. If I have to go to transactions, I will go to transactions, but only in context of users. I don't want to look at transactions because, like I said, it is a user behavior that drives the market. So the reason why I'm harping on this point is you would see the Epic vision, and you would see that play out over the next 1.5 to 2 years, as Jason mentioned. We are investing into this technology purely from a user perspective. Our solutions are to give users, to give visibility into application users. Our roadmap is aligned to a vision like what Jason mentioned around how we can make it easy, proactive, intuitive, intelligent, and collaborative. So just remember, when you have the next APM conversation, it is all about the user. Just remember, what you need to talk about is how, as a customer, your customers can inspire their users, right? And have a conversation around what user behavior do customers expect, and how can we control them, how can we influence them, how can we monetize them, right? I want to make sure that this conversation is clear with all of you, and then we've already covered the products. Jason and Gio are going to be around to answer any questions, any doubts you may have, and I hope you all learned something new about APM and what C is doing in this space today. So that's all from me, and we are open for lunch. Good. You're open for lunch. Thank you again for making your time today morning.